What if I told you that in 2003, a man walked into the FBI headquarters and confessed to a crime so impossible, so beyond comprehension, that federal agents didn't know whether to laugh, arrest him, or call a psychiatrist? What if I told you this man turned $800 into $350 million in just 2 weeks, executing 126 high-risk stock trades without a single mistake? And what if I told you that when they asked him how he did it, he looked them straight in the eye and said, "I'm from the year 2256. I'm a time traveler. This isn't science fiction. This isn't a movie plot. This is a story of Andrew Carlson, a man who either pulled off the greatest financial fraud in history or proved that time travel is real." And before you click away thinking you know how this ends, let me tell you something that will keep you here until the very last second. Andrew Carlson disappeared, vanished. After posting bail, he was never seen again. No body, no trace, no explanation. Just gone, as if he stepped back into whatever time he came from. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear will challenge everything you believe about time, reality, and what's possible. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you'll be questioning whether the past and future are as fixed as you've been told. Let's go back to January 2003. The stock market is volatile. The world is still recovering from the dot-com bubble burst. Investors are cautious. Portfolios are bleeding, and Wall Street is a war zone where even the most experienced traders are losing millions. In this chaos, one name starts circulating in whispers among financial analysts: Andrew Carlson. Nobody knows who he is. He has no trading history, no financial background, no Harvard degree, no connections to major firms. He's a ghost in the system. But in 2 weeks, this ghost turns $800 into $350 million. Let me repeat that because it sounds impossible even as I say it. $800 to $350 million in 14 days. To put this in perspective, Warren Buffett, one of the greatest investors of all time, averages about 20% returns per year. Andrew Carlson achieved returns of over 43 million% in 2 weeks. This isn't skill. This isn't luck. This is something else entirely. The Securities and Exchange Commission notices. The FBI gets involved. Something is very, very wrong. Because you see, Andrew Carlson didn't just make good trades. He made perfect trades. 126 consecutive high-risk trades, and every single one was a winner. He bought stocks right before they surged. He sold them right before they crashed. He predicted market movements that blindsided professional analysts. It was as if he knew exactly what was going to happen before it happened. And that's when the federal agents came knocking. Imagine being Andrew Carlson in that moment. You're sitting in an interrogation room. Cold fluorescent lights above you. 2 FBI agents across the table, files spread out, looking at you like you're either a criminal mastermind or an alien. They want answers. How did you do it? Who gave you insider information? What's your network? Who are you working with? These are the questions they're trained to ask. These are the answers they expect to extract. But Andrew Carlson gives them an answer that no training manual prepared them for. According to reports that surfaced shortly after, he looked at them and said words that would echo through conspiracy circles for decades. "I'm from the year 2256. I traveled back in time, and I use my knowledge of future events to make these trades." Stop. Breathe that in for a moment. Put yourself in that room. You're an FBI agent. You've interrogated drug lords, mob bosses, white-collar criminals. You've heard every lie, every excuse, every deflection. But this? How do you even respond to this? Do you laugh? Do you call for a psychological evaluation? Or do you lean forward and say, "Tell me more"? According to the reports, they did lean forward. Because here's what made this different from every other absurd confession in history. Andrew Carlson started providing details. Specific details. He claimed he was from a time when time travel was not only possible, but regulated. He said he knew coming back and using future knowledge for financial gain was illegal in his time, but he couldn't resist. He described technology that didn't exist in 2003. He mentioned historical events that hadn't happened yet. And here's the chilling part. He offered to prove it. He told them he could reveal the exact date Osama bin Laden would be captured. He said he could tell them the cure for AIDS. He offered information about future disasters, political events, technological breakthroughs. All he wanted in exchange was to be released and allowed to return to his own time. He even specified the exact location of his time machine, though whether agents ever investigated that location remains classified or unknown. Now, before we go further, I want you to do something. I want you to comment below what year you're watching this from. Seriously, humor me. Type the year right now. Because if Andrew Carlson is telling the truth, if time travel is real, then someone from 2045 or 2156 could be watching this video right now, reading your comment, knowing exactly what's going to happen to you next week. Think about that. Time isn't a straight line, it's a web, and we might all be caught in it right now without even knowing. So drop that year in the comments. Let's see who's watching from when. Now back to our story. The FBI has a problem. They have a man who's either insane, a genius con artist, or telling the truth about something that should be impossible. So they do what any rational investigative body would do. They start digging into his background. And this is where things get truly strange. Andrew Carlson, according to their investigation, didn't exist before 2002. No birth certificate, no social security number issued at birth, no school records, no employment history, no family members, no childhood friends, nothing. It's as if he materialized out of thin air in late 2002, opened a trading account with $800, and started his impossible winning streak. Some of you might be thinking, well, maybe he had a fake identity, maybe he erased his past. But here's the thing, in 2003, erasing yourself completely from the system was nearly impossible, especially in the United States after September 11th when background checks became incredibly thorough. And yet, Andrew Carlson had no footprint. He was a man without a past, which is exactly what you'd expect from a man claiming to be from the future. The story gets stranger. While he was in custody, Andrew Carlson supposedly gave a 4-hour interview where he described life in 2256. He talked about cities that floated, energy sources that made fossil fuels look prehistoric, and a society that had solved most of the problems we're struggling with today: poverty, disease, war. But he also warned them. He said that knowing the future comes with a price. He said there are rules in his time about temporal interference, and by coming back and manipulating the stock market, he had already violated those rules. He claimed that agents from his own time might come looking for him. Was he delusional? Was this an elaborate performance? Or was he telling the truth? Here's what we know for certain. Andrew Carlson was charged with insider trading, but insider trading requires a source. Someone with privileged information who passes it along. The FBI and SEC could never identify a source. They couldn't find anyone who gave him information because, according to him, his source was the future itself. And legally, how do you prosecute that? How do you prove or disprove someone's claim that they're from another time? And then, something happened that changed everything. Someone posted bail for Andrew Carlson. $1 million. We don't know who. The identity of the person who paid his bail was never publicly revealed. And the moment Andrew Carlson walked out of custody, he vanished. Completely. He never showed up for his court date. He was never found. It's as if he stepped out of that building and stepped right back into whatever time he came from. Let that sink in. A man who claimed to be from the future, who made an impossible fortune, who had no past and no identity, disappears without a trace after someone mysteriously pays $1 million to free him. If this were a movie, you'd say the ending was too neat, too convenient. But this is real. Or at least, it was reported as real in 2003. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking this sounds too perfect, too much like a story designed to fool people. And you're not wrong to be skeptical. Because here's where we need to talk about something important. The truth behind the Andrew Carlson story is complicated. After the initial reports in 2003, several major news outlets investigated the story. Some claimed it originated from a satirical website, similar to The Onion. Others said it was reported by legitimate news sources, but never fully verified. The FBI and SEC have no official public records confirming the arrest or interrogation, though some argue that exactly what you'd expect if the government wanted to keep this quiet. We're left in a strange gray zone where the story is too detailed and too widely reported to dismiss entirely, but too unverifiable to confirm absolutely. But here's what I want you to consider. Why does this story resonate so deeply? Why, even if it's not literally true, does it feel like it could be? Because it taps into something we all sense, something we all wonder about late at night when we can't sleep. What if time isn't what we think it is? What if the future has already happened somewhere, somehow, and certain people have found a way to access it? Think about déjà vu. You've experienced it. We all have. That eerie feeling that you've lived this exact moment before, seen this exact scene, heard these exact words. Science tells us it's a glitch in our brain's memory processing. But what if it's something else? What if it's a moment where timelines overlap, where your consciousness briefly touches a moment you've already experienced in another version of reality? The Andrew Carlson story forces us to ask these questions. And it's not just about him. Throughout history, there have been other cases, other whispers of people who seem to know too much, who appeared out of nowhere with knowledge they shouldn't possess. There's a story of John Titor, the man who posted on internet forums in 2000 and 2001 claiming to be a soldier from 2036, sent back in time to retrieve an IBM computer needed to debug legacy systems in the future. He made predictions. Some came true, some didn't. Then he disappeared, and people have been debating his authenticity ever since. There's a case of the Moberly-Jourdain incident in 1901, where two English women visiting Versailles claimed they slipped back in time to the French Revolution era and saw Marie Antoinette. There's a man from Taured who in 1954 allegedly arrived at Tokyo airport with a passport from a country that doesn't exist, insisting he was from a parallel timeline. There are dozens of these cases, scattered through history, each one dismissed as hoax or delusion, but collectively forming a pattern that's hard to ignore. What if these aren't isolated incidents? What if they're glimpses into a reality where time is far more flexible than our physics textbooks suggest? What if governments know more than they're telling us? Because let's be honest, if time travel were real, if it were possible, do you really think they'd announce it to the public? Do you think they'd risk the chaos, the paradoxes, the breakdown of every economic and social system we built on the assumption that the future is unknowable? The Andrew Carlson case, whether true or myth, represents our deepest fascination and our deepest fear. The fascination, what if we could see the future? What if we could fix our mistakes, prevent disasters, save the people we've lost? The fear, what if someone else already can? What if there are people, organizations, or governments that possess knowledge of future events and are using that knowledge to control the present? Think about it. If you knew the future, you wouldn't just be rich. You'd be powerful beyond measure. You'd know which companies to invest in before they explode. You'd know which politicians to support before they win. You'd know which technologies to develop before anyone else realizes their potential. You'd be unstoppable. And if that power exists, who has it? And what are they doing with it? This is why the Andrew Carlson story matters, even if every detail is fabricated, because it forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about power, knowledge, and control. It makes us wonder if the randomness of life is really random at all, or if somewhere, somehow, the game is rigged by players who've already seen the final score. Let me ask you something, and I want you to really think about this before you answer. If you could travel back in time with the knowledge you have now, what would you do? Would you resist the temptation to use that knowledge for personal gain? Would you avoid buying Bitcoin in 2010 when it was pennies, knowing it would hit $60,000? Would you not bet on the Super Bowl when you already know who wins? Would you not warn people about disasters you know are coming? It's easy to judge Andrew Carlson for using future knowledge to get rich, but be honest with yourself. In his position, would you have done differently? This is the moral paradox at the heart of time travel. If it's possible, it's almost impossible to use it ethically, because knowledge of the future is power, and power corrupts even the best intentions. Some physicists argue that time travel to the past is impossible because it creates paradoxes. The grandfather paradox is the most famous. If you go back in time and kill your grandfather before his children, you're never born, which means you never went back in time, which means your grandfather lives, which means you are born, which creates an infinite loop. But other physicists, including some very respected ones, argue that time travel might be possible through mechanisms we don't yet fully understand. Wormholes, quantum entanglement, closed time-like curves. The math allows for it, even if our technology doesn't. And here's something that should keep you up at night. If time travel ever becomes possible in the future, then it's theoretically possible right now. Because time travelers from the future could visit any point in history, including this moment, right now, as you're watching this video. They could be here. They could be watching. They could be influencing events in ways we can't detect. The only question is whether they're good at hiding, or whether we're just not good at noticing. The Andrew Carlson case suggests they're not always good at hiding. He got greedy. He made too much money too fast. He drew attention. If he was a real time traveler, he made the classic mistake. He underestimated the people of the past. He thought he could outsmart 21st century systems with 23rd century knowledge. But he forgot that humans, no matter what era they're from, are pattern recognition machines. We notice anomalies. We ask questions. We investigate. Or maybe he wanted to be caught. Maybe his confession was intentional. Maybe he was sending a message, not to the FBI, but to us, to you and me, watching this years later, wondering if it's real. Maybe the whole point was to plant a seed of doubt, to make us question reality, to prepare us for a future where time travel is revealed. Or maybe I'm giving him too much credit, and he was just a con artist with a great story. But then how do you explain his disappearance? How do you explain the lack of background? How do you explain the perfect trades? Every piece of evidence, even if circumstantial, points to something beyond ordinary explanation. Let's talk about what happened after he vanished. In the weeks and months following his disappearance, several investigative journalists tried to track down Andrew Carlson. They found nothing. No paper trail. No witnesses who could confirm they knew him before 2002. No photographs except one blurry image that circulated online and may or may not have actually been him. It's as if he existed only for that brief window of time, made his mark, and dissolved back into whatever dimension he came from. Some conspiracy theorists believe the government found him and took him to a black site for interrogation about future technologies. Others think he was extracted by agents from his own time, taken back to face consequences for breaking temporal laws. Still others believe he never left, that he's living among us right now under a new identity, more careful this time, making smaller trades, staying under the radar. What do you believe? And more importantly, why do you believe it? Because our beliefs about cases like this reveal something deep about our worldview. If you believe Andrew Carlson was a fraud, you believe in a universe that's orderly, predictable, bound by rules we understand. If you believe he was telling the truth, you believe in a universe that's stranger and more wondrous than we've been taught, where the impossible is just a not yet discovered. Neither belief is wrong. Both are human attempts to make sense of a story that resists easy explanation. And maybe that's the real point. Maybe the Andrew Carlson story exists in that liminal space between fact and fiction, precisely because that's where the most interesting truths live, not in certainty, but in possibility. Here's what we can say with absolute confidence. Someone, whether named Andrew Carlson or not, made extraordinary stock trades in early 2003. Someone aroused the suspicion of federal authorities. Someone disappeared without explanation. The details might be embellished, the quotes might be reconstructed, the timeline might be compressed to dramatic effect. But something happened. Something strange enough that it spawned a legend that persists more than 20 years later. And legends persist because they contain truth, even if not literal truth. The truth in the Andrew Carlson legend is this: we are not in control of time as much as we pretend to be. The future is coming whether we're ready or not. And it's bringing changes we can't imagine. Some people, through genius or luck or means we don't understand, seem to be ahead of those changes. They see what's coming before the rest of us do. And when they act on that knowledge, it looks like magic or fraud or time travel, depending on your perspective. Think about the great investors, the ones who become billionaires by betting on trends before they're obvious. Are they time travelers? Of course not literally. But in a sense, they've found a way to visit the future mentally, to project forward, to see possibilities that others miss. They're temporal anomalies in slow motion, making the kinds of predictions that Andrew Carlson made in Fast Forward. The difference is scale and speed. Warren Buffett takes decades to build his fortune through careful analysis and patience. Andrew Carlson allegedly did it in 2 weeks with impossible precision. One is admirable, the other is supernatural. But the underlying principle is the same: knowledge of future conditions translated into present action for future gain. So maybe Andrew Carlson wasn't from the year 2256. Maybe he was just from tomorrow, and that was enough. Maybe his time machine was a device but a method, some technique or insight that allowed him to see days or weeks ahead with clarity that seemed like magic to everyone else. Maybe the future he visited wasn't centuries away but just around the corner, close enough to touch but far enough to hide in plain sight. Or maybe, just maybe, he was exactly who he said he was. A man from a time when time itself has been conquered, when the past and future are as accessible as different floors in a building. A man who came back, made a fortune, got caught, confessed, and escaped back to his own era, leaving behind nothing but questions and a story that refuses to die. What I love about this case is that it doesn't matter which explanation is true. Every possibility is fascinating. If he was a hoaxer, he created one of the most compelling time travel myths in modern history. If he was mentally ill, his delusion was remarkably coherent and detailed. If he was a con artist, he never spent the money and left no trace, which defeats the entire purpose of a con. And if he was telling the truth, well, that changes everything we think we know about reality. This is why I make these videos. Not to give you answers, because I don't have them. None of us do. But to remind you that the universe is stranger than we imagine, that there are stories lurking in the margins of accepted history that deserve to be told, and that sometimes the most important questions are the ones we can't answer. If you've made it this far, thank you. Seriously, in a world of short attention spans and endless scrolling, the fact that you're still here tells me you're someone who thinks deeply, who questions, who wonders. That's rare. That's valuable. And I want to hear from you. In the comments below, tell me, do you think Andrew Carlson was real? Do you think time travel is possible? Have you ever experienced something that made you question the nature of time? Share your story. Let's build a community of people who aren't afraid to ask the big questions. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the most mysterious cases in modern history, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, because I'm bringing you more stories like this, more cases that challenge everything we think we know about time, reality, and what's possible. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next investigation. Because trust me, we're just getting started. Before I go, I want to leave you with one final thought. Andrew Carlson, whether real or fictional, represents something we all desire and fear in equal measure: the ability to escape the present, to visit the past and fix our regrets, to see the future and prepare for what's coming. We're trapped in the now, always moving forward at exactly 1 second per second, unable to speed up or slow down or reverse course. It's the fundamental constraint of human existence. But what if it's not a constraint? What if it's a choice we don't know we're making? What if consciousness itself is a time machine and we've just forgotten how to use it? Mystics and monks have talked for millennia about transcending time through meditation, about accessing past and future lives, about experiencing all of time as a single eternal moment. Science dismisses this as metaphor, but what if it's literal? What if the hardware for time travel is already installed in your brain, and you just need the right software to run it? Andrew Carlson might have had that software, or he might have had a machine, or he might have been lucky, or crazy, or a liar, but he made us think about time differently, even if just for a moment. And maybe that's the real gift of his story. Not proof of time travel, but permission to imagine that time is more flexible than we've been taught. The next time you experience deja vu, pay attention. The next time you have a dream that feels impossibly real, remember it. The next time you meet someone who seems oddly out of place, who knows things they shouldn't know, who talks about the future with strange certainty, ask questions. Because if time travelers are real, they're among us. And the only way we'll recognize them is if we're paying attention. Andrew Carlson might have been the first time traveler to get caught, Or he might have been one of thousands who visited our era and successfully stayed hidden. We'll probably never know for sure. But we can keep looking. We can keep questioning. We can keep our minds open to possibilities that textbooks say are impossible. Because history is full of impossibilities that became reality. Flying was impossible until it wasn't. Talking to someone on the other side of the planet was impossible until it wasn't. Landing on the moon was impossible until it wasn't. Maybe time travel is just the next impossibility waiting to be proved possible. And maybe when it happens, we'll look back at the Andrew Carlson story and realize it wasn't a warning or a hoax, but a preview. Until then, we live in the present, wondering about the past and dreaming about the future. And somewhere in some time, Andrew Carlson might be watching us wonder, smiling at the chaos he left behind, knowing something we don't. Knowing that time is not a line but a circle, and we're all going to meet again, somewhere, someone, in a moment that's already happened and hasn't happened yet. Thank you for watching. Thank you for thinking. Thank you for being curious enough to make it all the way to the end. Remember to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs their mind blown today. And keep questioning everything, because the truth is out there, somewhere in time, waiting to be discovered. Until the next mystery, keep wondering, keep watching, and keep one eye on the calendar, because you never know when someone from another time might step into ours.